Welcome back to another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. In this episode, we talk about computer science, how the lack of understanding drove a passion into reality. We explore the transition into a 4-year university and how to adjust. This episode is called Coding Opens New Doors with Miguel Ángel Cuen. Welcome, Miguel Ángel. Let's get started. Welcome back to another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. Thank you so much to the loyal listeners, to the loyal viewers. This is an audio as well as a video episode. And today I want to tell you that if you find Success Innovation useful, beneficial, and of value, please leave your review in whichever platform you are watching or listening. Also, please share, subscribe, and like. Today in Success Innovation, I have the great pleasure of speaking to Miguel Ángel Cuen. He is doing a double undergrad master's program from Arizona State University in computer science. He is also serving as part of the SHIP National Board member since 2019 up to date, which is the year 2020. He has also been very active in supporting underrepresented students in the national area of the United States, particularly in Arizona where he resides. Welcome, Miguel Ángel Cuen, to Success Innovation. How are you this evening?
I'm doing fantastic, and thank you for letting me be up here and kind of talk about my experience.
Sure, yes, definitely. And I gave a short introduction of who you are. You're an active member of SHIP in the ASU, Arizona State University student chapter. You've always been really active, and you've gone to the national board as a member there. But I want you to tell us from your early beginnings, when you were a small kid, can you kind of go through elementary, middle school, high school level, really quick as to how you progressed in those levels?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm born in San Diego, but my parents quickly moved to Mexico, and I was there till I was about 4. So we came to the United States and moved to Arizona. So I was kind of in English as a second language and kind of progressing. I was always very shy because it was an entirely new language for me, kind of growing up. And throughout the years, middle school, high school, I didn't really have any sort of direction. Nobody really asked me the questions, oh, what do you want to do? All this stuff. It was just kind of assumed like, yeah, you should go to college, do, whatever along the way. And it wasn't until like middle school, high school that I kind of had an idea. One of my uncles was a civil engineer, and I actually interviewed him for one of my high school classes in engineering, right? And he was the only one that I knew. So kind of talked about his experience. He worked at Qualcomm, and he gave me some great advice. Still following to this day. He just said, whatever you choose, hopefully in engineering, take your education seriously and do something you're passionate about. I still have the interview documented. And then shortly after that, he actually passed away, and on the job actually. And it was, I had this very strong lasting impressions on his words, right? So my education and the path I wanted to take in engineering was very serious to me. So I did a bit of research, and in high school I started, coding a little bit, trying to get an understanding. What does this look like? I ended up liking it. I wasn't the best thing in the world. I wasn't the best in the world or anything along those lines. I felt like I was a little behind even when I was starting out, but it was sort of a leap. And yeah, I'm still in computer science, going to graduate pretty soon. So yeah, I'm excited. And that was sort of a short journey.
Sure, of course. No, and thank you. And that's interesting. I didn't know you were born in San Diego and then left. So you never actually lived in San Diego. You just kind of was born here, parents left, and then you ended up in Arizona. Okay, just wanted
Correct.
to make sure that I got it right. So you mentioned that your uncle was somebody that kind of first started you off and introduced you to STEM. At what grade level in high school was that? How old were you at that time?
I was, I believe, 15. If my math serves me right, I think that's sophomore year of high school.
You're at the sophomore year, early sophomore year, somewhere around there, right? Okay.
There we
So
go.
when you're going through that assignment, did you already have a previous exposure to STEM, or this was really the first exposure to STEM, a STEM conversation with somebody in the engineering field?
No, this was entirely new. I've heard the term engineer, but I didn't even know what they did.
Right.
I assumed they built bridges, right? That's what I thought growing up, because that's what my uncle was, right? But then in high school, I took. Uh, the, Luckily enough for me, they offered engineering classes, and they told me, "Oh, try to investigate, all these different types." And the only exposure I really had was civil, which what it was, but not too much.
Okay, so being a civil engineer, he shared with you, the basic courses or the basic idea of the foundation of what engineering is. At that time, I don't believe it was called STEM. It was not. It wasn't a common term. I think the terms started sprouting a little bit later on. But with that being said, how did you? If he's a civil engineer, he was working at Qualcomm. Obviously, it's a technology company, but you're a computer science, him being a civil engineer, how did you actually decide to select computer science from all the engineering fields that are available? How did you find that path?
It's kind of odd. I don't feel like there was one moment that
Mhm.
struck it. It's sort of a mix. He introduced me to engineering as a whole. And then through that, through my assignments, one of them was to discover different engineering paths. And since I was a kid, I liked computers. I always found myself trying to, understand them. I never could from being a child. But along the way, I learned about computers. I just didn't understand it. And it was something that kind of bugged me. I could see the hardware physically, and I could see, okay, this is one part, and this serves this function, although I'd never understood software. And it was just sort of a very cool concept,
Mhm.
to how do you tell a computer something, right? And I think it's something we see daily, and it's everywhere, and we don't notice how big it is.
Right.
So I was introduced to the concept, and it seemed very challenging, and it seemed like something that was going to like test me. So at that point, I wasn't sure. It was something that I was excited about, and I sort of took this leap of faith. So I got lucky that I did like it, more throughout the years. The more I learned, it got more complex, and it was just a bigger world. So I'm very happy that I did choose it.
Fantastic. With that leap of faith, what was your first computer language and what was your first program? I'm pretty sure you might remember that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Back in high school, probably when I was around 16, and I wanted to kind of understand where I wanted to go. Uh, I knew I wanted to be computers, and I didn't know software or hardware. I saw hardwares. There wasn't as much, I guess, opportunity and job growth. So I was like, okay, let's see software. And I took one summer class for fun and to test the waters. And my first language, it was Objective C. So that's Xcode, like iPhone application coding. It was actually a game. The group we kind of formed, we made a little small 2D video game, where you need to chase another individual like character. But no, it was pretty fun, and I said, wait, I can get paid for this, like why not?
Right. Yeah, for sure. Right. So it was a little, the bankers and robbers type of game where you chase somebody else, and that's what the whole objective of the game is. Was it an interactive game where two players actually play, or was it a one person follows the computer graphics?
I believe it was just one player against computers or bots
Okay.
in the game. So yeah, it
Okay.
wasn't. That would have been cool.
Yeah, I'm just asking. I'm just trying to get the idea. So then you decide to go into the university. Obviously, you already have some sort of knowledge about what engineering is, about what computer science is, and that's kind of where you're heading. But out of all the universities nationwide and worldwide, how did you decide to pursue university, Arizona State University, in that respect?
Hmm. Number one, it's such a huge university. I didn't really have people to guide me and tell me, oh yeah, explore all these things. I just saw a humongous university with a lot of resources. A few of my siblings had gone there. They didn't study engineering, but they had told me, oh, it's a great campus, great resources. If you ever need help, you can go to a tutoring center. You can all do all these things. So it was, it seemed like a big world. So it was really in between. Um, Actually, no, I knew it was that school. I applied to
Okay.
one university only. Um, yeah, there wasn't this big, I guess, debate over several schools. It was
And
just this
the
one's
reason I'm
big. It's nearby.
asking, the reason I'm asking is because a lot of young high school students, they're either first generation or their parents are not really savvy as to what university offers in respect to whether in-state, either state,
Mhm.
private, or public. And in that case, they really don't know where to apply. So if they select the
Yeah.
closest one to their home, that's where they'll end up going. And that's kind of where my question
Mhm.
is, to try to clarify and provide examples to the students that are listening and to the young professionals that are listening as to how remembering their own path to going to university, how they selected that university. So thank you for sharing that. As as in addition to it, you mentioned that you have older siblings. So you had some sort of role models that actually went to a university career path versus other students that don't have that. Do you think that having those role models that went to a university made it a little easier for you to pursue a university career versus looking at your other friends who maybe didn't have that as
Mhm.
individuals growing up in high school? Can you kind of share some insight on that?
Oh yeah, it definitely. I know a lot of first generation students. My hat goes off to them. That it's pretty impressive how you can, nobody in your family accomplish something, you be the first. For me, it was definitely a lot easier. I didn't find myself asking, too many questions about the university in general. It was the people that helped me more were the people in ship. I found them my first semester, and any question I had, any form of development, they were, they had me. So although if my siblings would have studied engineering, yes, that would have been a
It would
lot
have been
easier.
awesome, right? It would have been great. Yeah. So you mentioned SHIP, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. For the audience who has been following the podcast, the channel of Success Innovation, you probably heard me talk about SHIP, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. You've heard me say the benefits of this organization, which is a national organization. And how did you find out about SHIP? That when your first semester at Arizona State happened? Was it a table at a career club fair or something like that? Can you walk us through that experience?
So how I found ship is I took this elective. It was called Engineering Projects and Community Service. So you're actually working on real world problems, right? And you get a taste of what it's like to be an engineer, right? That's what they told me. So I was this first semester freshman coming in, and throughout my first days of classes, I wore a Mexican soccer jersey. I wore a Cholos de Tijuana. That's where my entire family's from, and there was an e-board officer from ship who saw me. He's like, okay, he's Mexican and he's an engineer. He's in this class. So he came up to me and he's like, hey, you play soccer? And I was like, yeah, I like to play soccer. And then he's like, you should come play. Like, we're a bunch of Hispanics. We need more players. So I just got in ship through soccer actually, and then they told me you should go to the meetings and all this stuff. We have free food. And I was like, oh, okay, that sounds fun. And then I realized how big the club was. Since ASU is a very large university, it's a very large chapter. So there's a lot of members in SHIP. I got to meet incredible people. I've made amazing friends, and I've wanted to get as involved as I can since then.
Right. Okay. So when you first started joining, it was mainly for recreational soccer activities and whatnot, but you start getting deep inside of it. What actually, aside from the networking portion, at what point did you say, oh my God, this is really cool and I can find a lot of value in it? What made you stay?
100%, it was the people. And I'm not saying as people as, you know, it was amazing to be around them, although it was more what they, did for me, because I was struggling quite a bit in my coursework, just kind of understanding college as a whole. And those people helped me out so much. They motivated me. They told me, they were the first people to tell me that you could, run for a position. You could be a leader. That's like around the first times I actually understood what that word meant. And people are telling me that I could be one. I was like, what? Why me? And it was just people pushing me and believing me. And I said, okay, I want to kind of do this for other people within the club. I ran for positions and try to, help out where I could. So it was more of, they helped me out so much. Now I want to repay it. I love the environment. I love the people. It's very motivating.
So that's really cool that you mentioned leadership. What was your understanding about being a leader before SHIP? And what is it? How did that definition change after you joined SHIP?
Before, understanding it was sort of the leader is the head boss, the person who tells people what to do. Kind of, I thought of it more of a boss, and that's how it's depicted. But kind of being in SHIP and people leading me, I realized it's much different. It's entirely separate from a boss. Although a boss can be a leader, it doesn't overlap entirely. There's several definitions, right? Some people will tell you that a leader leads others. To me, that really resonates. I think the servant leadership mindset is one to really follow. But people who want to see you grow and not just kind of telling you what to do, but kind of instilling that culture to have you have a growth mindset, helping the people around you.
Right. Fantastic. Great. Thank you for explaining what that change in the definition of leadership means. I want you to go back to that first semester in college. You're coming from high school. High school is a little different. And I had this conversation with a student a couple of days ago where I was telling him about how high school is one thing, but going to university is another. Can you tell me your shock or lack thereof when transitioning into your first semester from high school to a university?
It probably the biggest shock for me was more on the financial side.
Yeah.
In high school, I could, I lived at home and, I didn't really have expenses. I didn't need to work, but college is expensive. Coming in, I needed to find a new place, rent, and then pay for the, university. Because in high school, I was sort of, an average student. I didn't understand the importance until like my third year of high school. So I was like a B minus student throughout. Right. I got some scholarship, but I still needed to kind of pay my way. So the biggest shock was having to work. And for quite a few years, I worked full time. I worked several jobs and on top of the academics. So it was, I was like, do I sleep? Do I study? Where do I, invest my time? It was a lot of strong time management. I couldn't really be lazy anymore. I couldn't, relax. It was, I guess
right. No, definitely. And that time management and maturity process really kicked in. And I'm pretty sure that you can attest to this, that within that first semester, you really started to see yourself mature, and probably your parents and people that you knew said, hey, you're becoming more mature, more dependable, something's different about who you are. So that essentially is how Miguel Angel Cuen has started pursuing his professional path. Now I want you to go and tell me, how did you decide to get into the national aspect of SHIP, still being a student at a university? How did that happen?
I've been in SHIP, first semester, and I was taking roles everywhere I could. And I tried to learn as much about the organization as possible, from, writing the national reports to, fundraising. And I kind of understood how to run a chapter and how to grow it in a strong way, how to retain people, recruit members, kind of all across the board. I try to dabble in everything. So it was a decision of, do I stay in my chapter, or do I want to pursue something else and try to help, a bigger reason, not to say one's more important than the other. It's just trying to get different areas of leadership and trying to make the best impact you can. So I always said, okay, do I want to run for my chapter again at ASU, or do I want to, pursue different things? And I thought of a regional role. And at the time I said, maybe the best person for the role is somebody in California. I'm in Region 2, so it's like 85% of the chapters are in California. Probably somebody else is more fit. And I decided to look into the national role. So I messaged the current person that was in my position at the time, and I asked them, hey, what do you do? How can I get involved in this? And we had a long conversation, and I really liked what I heard. So I started writing down goals, how to accomplish, the changes that I wanted to make and implement something nationally, right? If I could do that before I leave the university, I'll be pretty content with my time and on to, new challenges. So it was about trying to, I guess, leave that lasting impact and make it as big as I could.
Great. So, you mentioned that you spoke to that national board member position seat in that time. So what is, if you could summarize it into one or two big things, what does a national board member actually do? And what does that mean for the audience who's listening?
Yeah, I didn't understand it until I got on the NBOD. Okay. Basically, as a national board member, you're going to set strategic objectives for the organization, right? So if you look out in 10 years, where's SHIP going to be, and how do we get there? So you're more of a strategic leader, and it was a big shift for me because I was a very tactical and operational person, focusing day to day, how do I grow my chapter, all this stuff. But it's a very hands-off level where you were kind of voting on things on a bigger scale. For an example, like the COVID situation that we're in. I mean, we've been having those conversations back in January, like, do we cancel all of these conferences? Kind of giving your expertise in these areas, and it's kind of up to you, right? So I came in with my agenda that I wanted to pass in. So it's not as easy as saying like a secretary. You document stuff. Now it's you go to the meetings, you vote, you give your expertise, and you try to implement whatever it is you want to implement. But it's very open-ended.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. All right. What's been the biggest surprise by being a national board member? What has been the biggest surprise for you?
Yeah, the biggest surprise is the people that you work with and meet. I've never felt so out of place at the beginning. Coming into the national board, I've been working with the founder of SHIP, people that have been retired for several years. They've been in the industry so long. Engineers, top of their field, executives. You work with the CEO, she's a lawyer. So you get so many different expertise, and like deans of university as well. So it was like, whoa, okay, what am I doing here?
Right.
And then, you start to understand and try to know your worth, right? I was like, okay, they have this role for a reason. I'm a student. I know how chapters operate, and I know how to appeal to that audience, and I know what students are thinking when they're going to university. So definitely, it's the people you meet. You kind of like, okay, gotta watch what I say. You don't want to look dumb at any corner, and it's, yeah, I would say it's the people.
That was the biggest surprise. What was your biggest obstacle in that position, and how did you overcome it?
The biggest obstacle, and something that I'm glad that I learned early on, is what works for you might not work for somebody else.
Okay.
So I had my agenda, right, coming in, and I had to speak with what I did. I spoke to several regional leaders, so regions 1 to 7, and said, hey, I want to implement this change. Would this work for your region? Let me know, get feedback. And I adjusted this so much, and I was just so surprised. I was like, okay, when you're up at a larger level, you can't just focus on one small thing. You have to focus on everybody. So that was probably the biggest obstacle, getting feedback and really adjusting to the role and try to getting it implemented. You go through so many people, so many barriers, but yeah, starting early really helps.
Okay, and thank you for that. You are currently running for Region 2, student representative at large. Why are you pursuing this position within CHIP when you're already at the national level?
For the national level, for the regional level, I figured I want somebody else to kind of have the experience of being a national leader. There's 2 people in the position that could have it. So I said, okay, I'll take a step back. I like the idea of new leaders filtering in and out. Mm-hmm. You get different perspectives on the board. So I wanted to focus on my region this year, just because I've learned so much. I've seen how chapters operate, but on the national level, I've seen how SHIP as a whole operates. And through this, I've been able to witness, several regions, several chapters. I've been to different art conferences in Region 7 and 3, 2 and 5. So all along the board, I've been seeing what works for them, especially what doesn't. And I've been meeting leaders across the years, like RSRs that have expectations, and why don't they meet those goals? And I feel like I've compiled everything I want to do, and I have a strong, I guess, plan as to how to accomplish it. So it was more of the experience. Now I want to pay it back to my region.
So you've been with the national, you've gone to a couple of big conferences, you've met Raquel Tames, you've met the founder of SHIP, you've met a lot of head individuals with big positions at big industry corporations. Off of all of those, I'm assuming that there's a couple, but I want you to name 1 or 2 that you're really surprised of having had met, whether they're celebrities or really impactful people that you can mention in this show.
Probably the most important for me is the foundership himself, because I really like how he thinks. He's such a nice person. I would think he's just fed up with, hearing people talk. But no, he's somebody that listens to you, wants to hear more, respect your opinion, and I find that very motivating. So you meet a lot of high-ranking executives, but to me, it's not as impactful. I'd rather see somebody who, has a passion or a dream and is giving it all they have. So it's more about the individuals and the contributions, not their title or rank. But definitely the foundership himself, he's an amazing individual. I'm so glad that I got to work with him. Probably another one is Emily Allen. She is the dean for university in California. I don't want to say the wrong one.
Okay, no, that's all right. Emily Allen. Okay, yeah, Emily Allen. Okay, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Respect
fantastic.
I think she's very
awesome. What was the best advice that the founder of Ship gave to you?
Ooh, probably he's more of a question raiser in my experience. One of the questions that really startled me was, barely getting to know me. He's like, "Oh, so do you want to start a business?" And it was just like, whoa, never heard that one
Right.
before. But it got me thinking to really think outside the box, right? I think as engineers, you focus on your very technical stuff. You forget about developing your soft skills and kind of getting the business side of things too. So I think his advice was more through the questions that he raised of like, oh, what else are you doing, right? Not putting all your eggs in one basket, but trying to build yourself wherever you are.
Right. Yeah. Off of that raising of questions, have you thought about building your own business?
I have, although I'm more of motivated in one area now.
Okay.
So I've really, after being on the national board, I've really understood what I want to do through my career. And those questions and kind of seeing people who are retired, it really raises a lot of questions thinking, do I want to be like that person? Do I not want to be like that person? And trying to understand and reverse engineer at the end of my life, who do I want to be? And then seeing the path I need to go through. So I have, but it's more along the lines of another industry,
Sure,
if anything.
sure, of course, of course. That kind of leads me to the next question. You've done a lot of things with the national. You're being successful within the university chapter, within ASU, pursuing your computer science degree. But what is the next step for Miguel Ángel Cuen? Are you thinking of continuing to be involved? And what is your ultimate goal of being involved within SHIP? Or which companies are you targeting to obtain a full-time position within computer science?
Yeah. So in SHIP, I'm a lifetime member, so I'm going to stick here as long as I can. So that's never going to change. For next steps for me, I think if I do win, if I don't win, that'll be my last year as a student that I give to SHIP. And I'll be transitioning off as a professional. And right now I'm really looking into more computer science mixed with biology. So a little bit more of on the AI side. I've been really fascinated with the anti-aging research that they're doing. Mm-hmm. So for quite a while, I contemplated med school and trying to get in through there, or kind of adding a neuroscience degree on top of mine. But it really relies on biology and artificial intelligence to mix the both. Okay. There's a lot of industries like that, and I'm kind of seeing where my path lies, if it's in academia or if it's better to go into industry.
Right. Have you had any internships up to this point, and how have they gone? Can you give us some advice as to how you can actually, as a student, achieve getting those internships? And what do you think, from your perspective, has helped you to get that internship?
I've had one internship last summer, and I'm going into another one this summer. It's different companies. So last year I was with American Express, and that was a software engineer. Very amazing. And sorry, did you ask what as a student, what do you do to get the internships?
Yes. Right, correct.
It's a lot of it is your best friend's going to be networking here. Really have not just networking, but also back up, yourself and kind of your skills. I would make sure before going into a career fair or applying anywhere to really pump up your resume, try to develop your soft skills and know your worth. Number one is probably one of the big things. If you don't believe in yourself, why would a company, right? So you got to have that initial step. For me, Amex was amazing. It not completely, but it got rid of a lot of imposter syndrome that a lot of students feel like, am I enough? Am I supposed to be here? But when you have a company, I guess, pay you for your work or kind of recruit you, it sets something off. It says, okay, if somebody's willing to pay me for it, then I do belong here. I have the skills necessary, right? Then this next internship, also networking, but it was because I was talking to this recruiter for over a year. I'll say time and time again, your interview doesn't begin in the interview. Your elevator pitch doesn't begin in the career fair. It's prepping and prepping for years and getting to that point. So all your experiences, all your classes are building you to one point. So yeah, I would recommend start prepping, no matter if the career fair is a year away.
Right, that's fantastic. You mentioned a couple of key items that I want to focus on. You mentioned networking, you mentioned imposter syndrome, and you also mentioned knowing your worth. Off of those three, we've touched base on other episodes about networking, how to do that, and also the imposter syndrome. A lot of people have heard about it, but knowing your worth, how can you explain to somebody, a young individual that's not really savvy, how to know their worth? And what does that mean?
Knowing your worth, in my words, would be understanding the value you can bring to another company or whatever you're going into. If it's industry or your academic excellence, right? I would understand your strengths and really double down on it. So if you're technically gifted, try to get as many projects in as you can. Understand all the value that you can bring. It's not to say if you have 1,000 projects that you're better than somebody who doesn't. So if you don't have experience, I wouldn't say it's a negative thing. I think experience brings you sort of, a learning curve, and it shows people that I took an interest in this area, right? I did this personal project because engineering genuinely interests me. So I would say understand the value you can bring to a certain industry and show them that through your experience.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And I also want to highlight a key aspect that you mentioned that maybe some people didn't really catch. You mentioned that the elevator pitch doesn't just happen at the interview or the career fair. You actually mentioned that you developed that relationship. Developing that relationship is part of the network process. Developing a relationship with a recruiter, with a project manager, with a hiring manager, by connecting with them via LinkedIn, by sending emails to them if you get their business card, by following up with a phone call, not necessarily asking them for a job position, but just saying, hey, I'm doing this. This is the class that I'm taking. I just wanted to share that with you, touching base at a human level of a conversation level. And that way they have an update of you without really you asking for anything. So you're in their mind consistently, you're checking in, you're doing the things that you need to do so that they know, okay, this individual is really growing. And I see them every 6 months reaching out to me and giving me a status update of how they're actually doing. When the time comes and you meet them at the career fair, you're essentially dressed to impress, ready in front of them, but they already have a back history of this person is really ready to perform. And that's how you end up getting an interview. That's how you end up getting an extension for a possible position offering. And that's how you get that internship. So if you get out anything off of this conversation with Miguel Ángel Cuen, is go ahead and follow and be patient. Nurture those relationships and continue to touch base with those individuals without really expecting anything out of any of those relationships until it actually materializes into something fruitful. So thank you so much. Good leaders always create good leaders. Do you have any individuals that you look up to, and who are your mentors?
Yeah, my mentor, it's funny, the person who recruited me, trying to play soccer with me, he actually turned into the strongest mentor for me. He helped guide me so much, from prepping up my resume to interview prepping. He's somebody that loves the industries, and he loves he's an aerospace and mechanical engineer, so he loves airplanes. He does research on the side about different companies, and he does his homework on everything. His traits really instilled a culture in me that I wanted to be similar to. He would always end on good notes. Everybody has positive things to say about him. I'll call him out. His name's Andrew Alonzo. He works for Boeing over in Seattle. So he's a strong individual, amazing. I'd recommend him and sponsor him to the death. So he's definitely one of the strongest mentors that I could have asked for.
Fantastic. So a shout out to Andrew Alonso, who works over at Boeing. You are a person, a leader that has made an impact in Miguel Ángel Cuen. And I'm probably sure that you've made an impact in so many other students and professionals as well. Thank you, Miguel Ángel, for acknowledging him that way. That is awesome. What do you believe your superpower to be?
My superpower to be, that's a great one. I think it's, being hungry, if anything, not physically, more on the what you want to accomplish. I'm somebody who would like to keep growing wherever I can. Somebody, that's who I would like to be, right? And if I ever mentor students, I like to see that in them. I like to see somebody who's passionate, who wants to keep growing and learning. I feel like the time I spend with them and mentor and guide, it's well worth. They understand it and apply it. So I guess it's hunger.
So staying hungry and always yearning to learn and to apply those lessons that you learn to benefit off of them, and always be grateful and thankful for the mentors that you have and the individuals that have helped you in the past to be successful. So that's great. That's amazing. Do you have any particular books, movies, or podcasts that you believe have made an impact in your life and you wish more people would take advantage of it, that you could share with us?
Probably the one of the best books that I've read is called Conversational Intelligence. It really makes you understand the power of your words, how they can affect different parts of the brain, and seeing examples. It's amazing. It was written by somebody who's been in consulting as a CEO. So that's a professional I've never met, but I'm sure she's incredible. That one is amazing. I also read Case in Point. For a long time and still now, I really like the idea of consulting and that industry. Case in Point really prepares you for what it's like to be a consultant and going through the interview process. Really expect the unexpected and try to react as positively as you can. It will surprise you quite a bit, but any podcast that aligns with I guess your goal, find it.
Right. And fantastic. Yeah. Definitely. Thank you. No, those goods are really good. And I'm glad that you brought them up, because a lot of us, or culturally, a lot of Latinos, Hispanics, or underrepresented minorities tend to shy away from reading in a recreational aspect. Maybe because they're fed up with required reading from high school, from school level, and they feel that it's forced upon them. But it's awesome to see a student, a young adult, picking up books for pleasure, reading those books that they find beneficial, and self development books that will definitely help you along the lines of being a better individual in the professional aspect. Thank you for sharing those books. What is your definition of success? I mean, you've been a successful student. You've been a successful member of SHIP, holding different various positions, and you're soon to join, another wonderful group of graduating students in the near future, and joining either the industry or being an academic. And that path is also a success in the eyes of many. But to you, what is your current definition of success?
If I could give my best definition of success, it would be if you can finish a task or whatever you're focusing on and you can look back and say, I regret nothing. Not to say it went perfectly, but I don't regret a single thing. I think that's success. I think it shows that you pushed your limits, you took risks wherever you could, and you gave it the best effort that you could.
Okay, fantastic. That's a wonderful definition of success. That's amazing. This question I really like to ask the audience, the guest at the end. Imagine that you could go back to that 14-year-old when you're a freshman about to go into your sophomore year. This is at that point where you've already finished, the 9th grade, but you know nothing about engineering or STEM or the sciences, as a matter of fact. You only know that engineering is essentially somebody who builds bridges. But you go back to that young individual, to that Miguelito. Can you share with us, what would you tell that little young man? 3 pieces of advice that would definitely help him shape his path to help him get where you're at faster?
Absolutely. Number 1 would be try to learn everything out of every situation. I think when I was younger, I didn't. And probably most people, you don't really value your education as much as when you're older and when you understand its true power. Because if you do well in your education academically, it helps you financially, it helps you out in the long run. I asked that very question to a lot of professionals, and they say the same thing. I would like to go back and take my academics seriously because it does affect you in the long run. Definitely be educated. Number 2, I think would be, don't only focus on school to learn. I think a lot of people, when you hear education, you think degrees, you think masters, you think PhD, but you don't really think about podcasts. You don't think about books. You don't think about learning from other people, asking for advice. So I would say, try to learn from any situation, learn outside of your classes as well. And number 3, I probably would have told them, save your money or use that and invest it somehow. Would love to have no debt.
Those are awesome pieces of advice that you would be able to share with your younger self. Thank you for sharing those with us, with the audience. That is amazing. So thank you so much. With that, I want to say thank you, Miguel Ángel Cuen. Thank you so much. I've had a wonderful time interviewing you. This has been a wonderful conversation. I hope it was beneficial and useful to you, and you had a great time. To the audience, once again, if you find this Success Innovation episode useful, beneficial, and of value, please leave your review in whichever platform you are watching or listening. Also, please share, subscribe, and like. And don't forget, if you want to connect with Miguel Ángel Cuen, I will leave his LinkedIn profile in the descriptions below, or you can reach out to him, find him yourself. But, thank you so much once again. This has been Lázaro Herrera from Success Innovation. I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for sticking around for another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. Thank you for watching and listening. We learned so much about Miguel's path to university and how having a role model allowed him to navigate this treacherous path. Please connect with Miguel Ángel Cuen via LinkedIn. His connection is below. This has been Lázaro Herrera for Success Innovation. See you next time. Bye-bye.